Story 1. The page that followed me. I know how this sounds. Believe me, I do. That's why I haven't told anyone, not really. Not since the last time I tried and they looked at me like I needed help. So I've kept quiet. But something's happening again, and this time it's worse. I transferred to Columbia last fall for grad school. Urban Studies. I thought a change of scenery would help me reset, get away from the mess I left behind in Chicago. The Columbia Library became my refuge. Towering shelves, quiet corners, that faint dusty smell that clings to old paper. I'd spend hours there buried in research. But then I started noticing something. Something small. Something I tried to ignore. Every book I pulled from the stacks, no matter the topic, no matter the floor, was open to page 237. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Maybe someone before me had left it that way. But it kept happening. Psychology textbooks, urban planning manuals, even obscure poetry collections. Always page 237. Always a highlighted passage. And the worst part? The passages felt personal. One day, after a fight with my advisor, I found a line underlined in red. The weight of expectation crushes the will to create. Another time, when I was spiraling over my thesis, the page read, "Some structures are meant to collapse." I told myself it was just my brain making connections. Pattern recognition. But deep down, I knew something was off. One afternoon, I asked the librarian about it. Not directly, I didn't want to sound insane. I just mentioned that a lot of books seemed to fall open to the same page. She froze. Her eyes flicked to mine, then to the desk, like she was deciding something. Finally, she leaned in and whispered, "Don't read anything from the basement archives. Not alone." Then she stood up and walked away. I laughed it off. Basement archives? That part of the library was restricted anyway. Mostly old manuscripts and journals, stuff you needed special permission to access. But her reaction stuck with me. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the way she said it. Not "don't go down there." Not "be careful." "Don't read." Like the danger wasn't the place. It was the act. 3 nights later I went down there. I told myself it was just curiosity. That I'd peek around, maybe find something useful for my thesis. The basement was colder than I expected. The lights buzzed faintly overhead, casting long shadows between the shelves. Most of the books were locked behind glass, but one section, far in the back, was open. That's where I found it. A leather-bound journal, no title. Just sitting there like it had been left out for me. I opened it and my stomach dropped. The handwriting, it was mine. Not similar. Not close. Was mine. Same loops on the G, same crooked R. I flipped through the pages, heart pounding. The entries were dated, weeks into the future. The first entry was dated next Tuesday. It described a conversation I hadn't had yet, with my advisor about scrapping my entire thesis. I read it twice, then checked my phone. The date was real. The details were too specific. I kept flipping. The next entry described me waking up with blood under my fingernails. No explanation. Just one line, "I don't remember what I touched." I should have stopped. I should have closed the journal and walked out. But I didn't. I kept reading. Each entry got worse. One described a shadow standing at the foot of my bed, whispering my name. Another said I'd find a note in my apartment, written in the same handwriting, telling me to go back to page 237. I felt sick, like something was watching me read. Like the words weren't just predictions, they were instructions. I ran. Left the journal open on the table and bolted up the stairs. I didn't stop until I was outside, gasping in the cold air. That night, I locked my apartment door and shoved a chair under the knob. I didn't sleep. I just stared at my bookshelf, wondering if any of those books had ever really been mine. The next morning, there was a note slipped under my door. No envelope. Just one sentence, "You skipped a page." I haven't gone back to the library. I dropped the class, changed my thesis topic, even considered transferring again. But last night I found something tucked inside my notebook. A torn scrap of paper. Page 237. No book title. Just a passage I hadn't seen before. You can't unread what was written for you. I don't know what's happening. I don't know if it's real. But if anyone's ever seen something like this, something that knew your thoughts before you did, please say something. I need to know I'm not the only one. Story 2. The nail scratches in room 6B. I know how this sounds. Believe me, I do. But I swear I didn't imagine those scratches. They were deep, jagged lines carved into leather bindings like someone had clawed at them in a panic. I was alone in room 6B, the restricted reading room at UCLA. It's tucked behind the archives, past 2 locked doors and a keypad that only a handful of grad students have access to. I was working late, trying to finish a paper on sensory deprivation experiments. That's the irony. I was writing about isolation, while something was watching me. The room was silent. Not library silent, dead silent. No hum from the vents. No footsteps in the hallway. Just me, the books, and that awful fluorescent light that buzzed like it was trying to whisper. I noticed the first scratch on a volume of behavioral studies in controlled environments. It was open to a chapter on long-term confinement. Then another book, same thing. Scratches. Same chapter. Same theme. I ran my fingers over the grooves. They were fresh. The leather still curled at the edges. That's when I checked the security feed on the monitor near the door. No one had entered for hours. Not even me, according to the log. I should have left. I know that now. But I kept telling myself it was just a glitch. Maybe the books were damaged earlier and someone forgot to log their visit. Maybe the security system missed something. I'm good at rationalizing things when I'm scared. But then I started hearing it. A whisper. Faint. Like someone mouthing words from across the room. I turned so fast I knocked over my coffee. No one. Just rows of shelves and that awful buzzing light. I held my breath and listened. The whisper came again, but this time it said something I recognized. It was my own thought. Not spoken aloud. Just something I'd been thinking seconds before. I should leave. That exact phrase. But it didn't sound like me. It was slower. Drawn out. Like someone savoring the words. I stood up, heart pounding, and scanned the room. I even checked under the table. Nothing. I tried to laugh it off, but my voice cracked. I packed my bag ready to go, but something stopped me. A book on the far shelf, one I hadn't touched, was open, facing me. And the page was about auditory hallucinations in isolation chambers. I didn't open that book. I hadn't even walked near that shelf. But there it was, spread wide like it had been waiting. The passage described how subjects began to hear voices that mirrored their own internal monologue. Not random sounds, not gibberish. Their own thoughts repeated back to them, slightly altered. I felt my skin crawl. I closed the book, but the cover resisted. Like something didn't want it shut. I had to press hard, and when I did, I noticed it too had scratches. Same pattern. Same depth. I looked around. Every book on that shelf had them. I backed away, bumping into the table. My laptop screen flickered, then froze. I stared at the cursor blinking in the middle of my unfinished sentence. The mind adapts to silence by creating sound. I hadn't typed that. I swear I hadn't. I moved to shut it down, but the screen went black before I touched it. That's when the whisper came again. Closer. Clear. You're adapting. I spun around, heart hammering. Still no one. But the air felt wrong. Heavy. Like the room was pressing in on me. Like it was listening. I tried the door. Locked. It always auto-locks, but the keypad wasn't responding. I entered the code 3 times. Nothing. I even kicked it, which earned me nothing but a bruised toe and a louder buzzing from the ceiling light. I called campus security, but my phone had no signal. Not low bars. None. Just no service. I stood there, breathing shallow, trying not to panic. That's when I noticed the smell. Faint but sharp. Like old metal and something sweet, rotting. It was coming from the vent above the archive shelf. I climbed onto the chair to get a better look. The vent was slightly ajar, and inside, I swear, I saw something move. Just a flicker. Like fingers pulling back into the dark. I jumped down, nearly twisting my ankle. My breathing was erratic now. I kept whispering to myself, "It's fine, it's fine, it's fine," like a mantra. But then I heard it again. The whisper. This time it repeated my mantra, but added something. "It's fine, until it's not." That voice wasn't mine. It wasn't mimicking me anymore. It was responding. I stumbled back toward the table, trying to keep my eyes on every corner of the room at once. That's when I saw it. A book I hadn't noticed before. The black cover. No title. Just sitting there, perfectly centered on the desk. I didn't put it there. I hadn't seen it when I arrived. My hands were shaking as I reached for it. The leather was warm. Not room temperature, warm like skin. I opened it slowly and my stomach dropped. On the spine, etched in faded gold, was my name. Inside, the pages were blank at first. Then halfway through I found text. A single paragraph. It described everything that had happened that night. The scratches, the whispers, the vent. Word for word. I flipped the page. More text. Things I hadn't done yet. Things I hadn't seen. I read about the chair falling over. About the lights flickering. About me screaming. I hadn't screamed. Not yet. But the next line said, "He screams when the door finally opens." I froze. Then I heard the click. The keypad beeped. The door unlocked. I didn't wait. I ran. Down the hallway, past the archives, out into the night air. I didn't stop until I reached my apartment. I locked the door. Twice. Then a third time. I sat on the floor staring at my bag. The book was still inside. I hadn't meant to take it. I don't even remember packing it. But there it was. I opened it again, hands trembling. The next page had changed. It described me sitting on the floor, reading, breathing fast. Then, it said I would hear the knock. I haven't slept since. Every night I wait. And every night at exactly 2:41 a.m., I hear it. One knock. Then silence. I've moved twice. Burned the book. Changed my number. But it still finds me. I think room 6B wasn't just a place. I think it was a test. And I failed. If anyone's ever been through something like this, please say something. I need to know I'm not the only one. Story 3. The Beacon Hill Manuscript. I never believed in cursed books or haunted libraries. I mean, come on, I'm a history major, not a ghost hunter. My thesis was on colonial-era rituals in Massachusetts, and I'd spent weeks buried in the archives at Emerson Hall. Dusty tomes, brittle parchment, the occasional whiff of mildew, nothing out of the ordinary. Until last Thursday. That's when I found the manuscript. It wasn't in the catalog. No barcode. No record. Just sitting there, wedged between 2 volumes on Puritan funeral rites, like it had been waiting. The cover was plain, cracked leather, no title. Inside, the handwriting was erratic, like someone had written it while trembling. One page caught my eye. A ritual performed in Beacon Hill, 1721. Supposedly, it trapped a person's soul inside written words. I snorted. Colonial creepypasta, I muttered. But then I noticed something weird. In the margins, someone had scribbled notes, in modern English. Stuff like he's reading this now, and left hand, ink smudge. I looked down. My left hand had a fresh smear of ink. I hadn't touched a pen. I flipped back a few pages, thinking maybe someone had used the book recently and left notes. But the handwriting didn't match anything I'd seen before. It was shaky, almost frantic. And the strangest part? The notes kept updating. I swear, one line wasn't there when I first opened the book. He's going to check the spine next. I froze. That's exactly what I was about to do. I hadn't said it out loud. Hadn't even moved yet. But the words were already there, waiting. Okay, I'll admit that's when I stopped laughing. I closed the book, shoved it back on the shelf, and left the archives early. Tried to shake it off. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I'd imagined it. But that night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the ink. The way it smelled, metallic, almost sweet, like blood. And the way the letters seemed to twitch on the page like they were alive. I told myself I'd go back in the morning and prove it was just a prank. Some grad student messing with me. That's all it had to be, right? The next morning I went straight to the archives. The manuscript was gone. I asked the librarian, old guy always smells like pipe tobacco, if anyone had checked it out. He squinted at me like I'd asked for a unicorn. That shelf hasn't been touched in years, he said. I insisted. Described the book. The cracked leather. The Beacon Hill ritual. He sighed and typed something into the system. Then he frowned. It's checked out, he said slowly. Under your name. I blinked. That's impossible. I never. He turned the screen toward me. Date of checkout, October 12, 1974. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because I didn't know what else to do. That's got to be a glitch, I said. I wasn't even born in 74. The librarian didn't respond. Just stared at me like I was the glitch. I left without the book. But that night it was waiting for me. Sitting on my desk. I hadn't brought it home. I hadn't even touched it since I left the archives. But there it was, open to a new page. The margins were full again. He's going to read this. He won't stop. I slammed it shut. Locked it in my closet. Tried to forget. The next few hours were a blur. I tried to study, tried to focus, but my eyes kept drifting to the closet. I could feel it, like the book was pressing against the door from the inside. Around midnight I gave in. Opened the closet. It was still there, but something had changed. The ink on the cover looked darker. Fresher. I opened it again against my better judgment. The margins were filled with new lines. He's alone now. He's going to touch the page. I didn't. I backed away. But then I saw the last line. He's going to burn it. That was the first rational idea I'd seen in the whole damn book. I grabbed it, ran to the kitchen, and lit a match. But the pages wouldn't catch. I tried again. And again. The flame danced over the paper, but it didn't burn. Not even a singe. I threw it in the sink, poured water over it. The ink bled, but only the colonial text. The margin notes stayed sharp. Crisp. Like they'd just been written. I stared at the last line again. It had changed. He tried. It didn't work. I dropped the book. My hands were shaking. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the handwriting. Not just in the book, on my walls, my mirror, even the inside of my eyelids. I started hearing things too. Scratching sounds, like a pen dragging across paper. I checked every corner of my apartment. Nothing. But the book was still there. Still dry. Still intact. I thought about taking it back to the archives, but something stopped me. A line had appeared on the inside cover. If he leaves, it follows. I started testing it. Took the book outside. Walked 3 blocks. Left it on a bench. Came home. It was on my desk again. I mailed it to a friend in Vermont. He called me 2 days later, confused. Said I'd send him an empty envelope. No book. I checked my closet. It was back. Same page. Same ink. But now the margin notes were more personal. He's scared. He's starting to believe. He's almost ready. Ready for what? I didn't know. But I could feel something watching me. Not from the room, from the pages. Last night I tried one last thing. I tore the pages out one by one. Burned them in the sink. This time they burned. Or at least I thought they did. But when I woke up this morning, the book was whole again. Sitting on my chest. Open to a blank page. No colonial text. No margin notes. Just a single line in the center. Right. I don't know what it wants. I haven't touched a pen. Haven't typed a word. But the page is no longer blank. It's filling itself. with my thoughts, my actions, my fears. I think it's writing me. I don't know how else to say it. I feel hollow, like something's being pulled out of me one sentence at a time. I tried to scream earlier, but no sound came out. Just ink dripping from my mouth. I don't know how long I have. Maybe I'm already gone. Maybe I'm just words now. If anyone's ever seen a book like this, one that shouldn't exist, one that knows you, please say something. I need to know I'm not the only one. Story 4. Venice Beach Study Group. I've always thought horror stories were just lazy metaphors for stress. You know, ghosts as guilt, monsters as trauma, that kind of thing. So when I joined the late-night study group at USC, I didn't expect anything more than caffeine-fueled cramming and bad jokes about failing midterms. We'd meet in the basement level of the library, the one with the flickering lights and that weird smell like wet carpet and printer toner. Afterward, we'd drive out to Venice Beach, sit on the sand, and pretend we weren't all slowly unraveling from academic pressure. It was our ritual, our escape. The night it started, we were 6. Me, Jamie, Luis, Tasha, Aaron, and Mark. Mark was the one who found the book, tucked behind a row of outdated psychology journals, like someone had tried to hide it but gave up halfway. It looked ancient, but not in a cool Indiana Jones way. The cover was warped, and the leather had these deep scratches across it, like something with claws had tried to tear it open. Mark flipped it open and laughed. "Guys, listen to this," he said, reading a passage about a group of friends who vanished one by one after reading a cursed text. We all groaned. I said, "Wow, spooky. Maybe it's just a metaphor for dropping out." We laughed. We always laughed. We didn't take it seriously. I mean, come on, a cursed book? In a university library? It sounded like something out of a bad student film. Mark read the passage out loud, dramatically, like he was auditioning for a horror podcast. "Those who speak the words aloud invite the silence," he said in this deep, theatrical voice. Aaron threw a crumpled paper at him. Luis rolled his eyes. I just muttered, "Well, guess we're all doomed now." We joked about who'd vanish first. Tasha said it'd be her, she was always late anyway. We laughed again. That was the last time we all laughed together. The next morning, Mark didn't show up to class. No texts. No posts. Nothing. At first, we thought he was just skipping. He did that sometimes when he pulled all-nighters. But by evening, his roommate said his bed hadn't been slept in. His phone was still on the desk. His keys were in the bowl by the door. It was like he just stopped existing. We met up at Venice Beach that night, trying to act normal, but the mood was off. Tasha kept checking her phone. Luis didn't say much. Jamie stared out at the water like it might give him answers. I said, "Maybe he's just ghosting us." Literally. No one laughed. That night I couldn't sleep. Not because I believed anything supernatural was happening. I didn't. But something about Mark's disappearance felt wrong. Like a puzzle with too many missing pieces. Around 3 a.m. I got a text from Jamie, "Check the book." I didn't respond. I just got dressed, walked to the library, and used my student ID to get into the basement level. The book was still there, right where Mark had left it. I opened it and my stomach dropped. There was a new page. It described a group of 6 students. One had vanished after reading the passage aloud. It didn't say his name, but it didn't need to. I called Jamie. He was already on his way. When he arrived, we stared at the book together, not saying much. Then he flipped to the back, the final page. It was blank. Completely blank, except for 6 faint lines like placeholders. One of them had a name written in shaky ink, Mark. The rest were empty. Jamie whispered, "It's updating itself." I said, "That's impossible." He didn't argue. We took the book with us, wrapped it in a hoodie, and drove to Venice Beach like we always did. But this time we didn't sit on the sand. We just stood there watching the waves, clutching the book like it might bite. Luis disappeared 2 nights later. He'd gone out for a run, posted a selfie at the track, and then nothing. His roommate said he never came back. His phone was found on a bench, screen cracked, still playing music. We met again at the library, just the four of us now. The book had changed. Another page had appeared, this one describing a second disappearance. It mentioned a runner, a cracked screen, a bench. Luis's name was now etched into the second line on the final page. I stared at it for a long time, trying to find the trick. A hidden pen, a prank, something. Tasha wanted to burn it. Aaron said we should take it to a professor. Jamie just sat there, pale and silent. I said, it's just a coincidence. Someone's messing with us. But my voice didn't sound convincing, not even to me. We argued for hours until the library staff kicked us out. That night, I didn't go to Venice Beach. I stayed in my dorm, lights on, door locked. I kept checking my phone, waiting for someone to text, "I'm okay." No one did. Around 2:41 a.m., I heard a knock on my door. 3 slow taps. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The knock never came again. By morning, Tasha was gone. Her roommate said she'd left early to meet someone at the beach. Her last message was a voice note, just wind and something that sounded like whispering. We played it over and over, trying to make sense of it. Aaron cried. Jamie didn't speak. I opened the book again. Another page had appeared. It described a girl who left early, chasing comfort, and found only silence. Her name was now on the third line. I ran my fingers over the ink. It was still wet. I wiped it off with my sleeve, but it reappeared seconds later. We stopped going to class. We stopped sleeping. Erin started keeping the book in her backpack like it was safer close to her. Jamie said we should read the whole thing, maybe there was a way to reverse it. I said, or maybe that's exactly what it wants. Erin snapped at me, said I wasn't helping. She was right. I wasn't. I just kept thinking about the final page. 3 names left. 3 of us. I started dreaming about it. The book opening on its own. Pages turning without hands. My name appearing in ink I couldn't wash off. Erin vanished yesterday. She'd gone to the library alone, said she needed to understand it better. We begged her not to. She didn't listen. Her phone was found on the table, screen still lit, showing a note she never finished typing. I think it's watching us. Jamie and I went back that night. The book was waiting. Another page had appeared. Erin's name was now on the 4th line. I didn't speak. Jamie didn't either. We just stared at the last 2 empty spaces. I asked, what happens when it's full? Jamie said, maybe it closes. Maybe it starts over. We haven't left each other's side since. We sleep in shifts. We keep the book locked in a drawer, but somehow it's always out when we wake up. Last night, Jamie said he heard whispering coming from it. I told him he was sleep deprived. But then I heard it too. A voice, soft, distant, like someone calling from underwater. This morning, Jamie was gone. No note. No phone. Just the book open on the desk. His name is there now. 5th line. 1 left. I haven't touched it. I haven't read anything. But I think it knows I'm next. If anyone's ever seen a book like this, one that writes itself, one that watches, please say something. I need to know I'm not the only one. Story 5. The silence between shelves. I used to think urban legends were just lazy folklore. Half-truths stretched by bored minds. That's why I chose them for my thesis, to dissect the psychology behind why people believe in shadows. But I wasn't prepared for what I found in the Regenstein Library. It started with a single book left open on a table in the basement stacks. The page described a man named Ellis Granger, last seen walking his dog near Hyde Park in 1997. No body. No leads. Just a final line. He was seen entering the fog, and never came out. I thought it was coincidence. Until I found another book. Different author, different decade. Open to a page about a woman named Marla Chin. Same neighborhood. Same disappearance. But this one had something else. The paper was torn near the spine like someone had clawed at it. I ran my fingers over the grooves. They were fresh. Too fresh. I looked around, expecting someone to be nearby, but the aisle was empty, silent, except, I swear I heard a footstep. Just one. Behind me. I started checking the timestamps on the library's catalog system. None of the books had been checked out recently. Some hadn't moved in years. Yet they were all open. All turned to pages about disappearances in Hyde Park. I found 6 more that afternoon. Each one had a different name, a different year. But the pattern was the same. Always the same neighborhood. Always no resolution. And always those marks. Like fingernails dragged across the paper in desperation. I told myself it was a prank. Maybe some twisted grad student trying to mess with whoever stumbled on their setup. But the deeper I went into the stacks, the colder it got. Not just temperature, something else. Like the air was wrong. Heavy. I started hearing things. A soft shuffle. A breath. Once, I swear I heard someone whisper my name. I spun around so fast I knocked over a pile of books. No one was there. Just rows and rows of shelves. And that silence, thick, pressing silence between them. I tried to leave. I packed my notes, grabbed my bag, and headed for the nearest exit. But when I pushed through the door, I didn't step into the hallway. I stepped back into the library. Same shelves. Same flickering overhead light. I thought I'd taken a wrong turn, so I tried another exit. Same result. I even went up a floor, but every door led me back to the same aisle. The one with the open books. I started to panic. My phone had no signal. No Wi-Fi. Just a black screen and the time. Stuck at 2:41 p.m. I ran. I don't remember how long. My legs ached. My throat burned. But the library wouldn't end. It just kept folding in on itself, like it was rearranging behind me. I passed the same table 3 times. The same trash bin with the crumpled receipt. I screamed for help. Nothing. Not even an echo. And then, I saw it. A book lying in the center of the aisle. Not on a shelf. Just placed there. Like it was waiting for me. It was a hardcover. No title on the spine. Just a photo on the front. My photo. One I'd never taken. I was standing in front of the library, smiling like I didn't know what was coming. My hands trembled as I opened it. The pages were blank at first. Then halfway through I found text. It described everything I'd done that day. What I wore. What I ate. Even the moment I found the first book. Word for word. I flipped to the last written page, and it ended mid-sentence. I dropped it. I didn't want to touch it anymore. But the moment it hit the floor, the lights above me dimmed. Not all at once, one by one. Like something was walking toward me, triggering each bulb as it passed. I backed away, heart pounding, trying to stay quiet. But the silence was louder than my breath. I could hear it. The footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Coming from the shelves behind me. I didn't want to turn around. I couldn't. I pressed myself against the wall, eyes locked on the aisle ahead. The lights kept dying, one after another, until only the bulb above me remained. I could feel it now, not just hear it. The weight of something watching. Breathing. I whispered to myself, begged for it to be a dream. But then, the book opened. On its own. The pages flipped violently, stopping at the last one. The sentence that had ended halfway through was now complete. It said, "He turned around." I froze. My body refused to obey. But my head, it moved. Slowly. Against my will. And there it was. Between the shelves. Not a person. Not a shadow. Just absence. A shape made of nothing. Like the space itself had bent inward. It didn't move. It didn't speak. But I felt it reach for me. Not with hands. With memory. My thoughts blurred. I couldn't remember my name. My thesis. Why I came here. Just the sound, that awful sound, of pages turning. I don't know how long I stood there. Maybe minutes. Maybe hours. Time didn't feel real anymore. Eventually the lights came back. The shelves looked normal again. The exits worked. I stumbled out into the daylight, blinking like I'd been underground for days. No one asked where I'd been. No one noticed I was gone. I tried to tell a professor, he laughed. Said I'd been working too hard. Said urban legends mess with your head if you let them. But I know what I saw. I know what followed me. Because last night I found something on my desk. A book. Same cover. Same photo. But this time, it's open to a new page. Blank. Waiting. And I swear I heard footsteps outside my apartment. Just one. Then silence. If anyone's ever been through something like this, please say something. I need to know I'm not the only one.